All right, it's 7:31. We're going to begin this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education on January 23rd, 2023. We're going to ask everyone who can to please stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Present.
Mr. Bogosian,
Present.
Mr. Conti, Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Present.
Mr. Mazzone,
Here.
Dr. Racine,
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Present.
Dr. Oladi.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Subsequent to the meeting, a video of the meeting will be uploaded to the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. So board members, in your packets are two sets of minutes to approve. Regular meeting for January 3rd, 2023, an executive session for that same date. Any questions or comments about those? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please enter those. And now we have the pleasure of starting with the report of the student representative, Ms. Bimson. I'll turn it over to you.
Does that work? Okay. Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a good holiday season. 2023 starting well. For RHS, 2023 has definitely brought new and exciting things for students. Last time I talked about drives we were doing for the holiday season, so those ended successfully and more clubs have opened opportunities. One of the most notable was the Future Business Leaders of America Club, who won their regional competition this past week. We had 9 students sent who qualified in their respective categories, and they won in the regional section and moved to the states in March. On that note, the high school accounting classes have also been kept busy with the New Jersey Society of CAPs. So this is an organization that is annually offered to high schools in New Jersey to participate in its career awareness programs, which is CAP. So members of this organization talked to RHS accounting classes this past week and students interested in the field. And this is especially important as applications for colleges come too close for seniors. Some RHS students have received early action or early decisions, and that kind of kicks off the commitment process there. The rest of the students are also now available to register and organize their 2023 and 2024 classes. Quarter 2 ends this week, and it's basically the midpoint of the school year for students. Other notes can include the new additions to the school library, which are exciting for students. So they can find themselves focused and relaxed in something called a Zen Den, which was added as a separate room from the regular common area for students to study or relax from the school day. That all being said, I also have a slight proposal I want to make. So students are enjoying the new developments to the Mortimer outside, and I was wondering if any seating or like picnic tables was like able to be added. I was also talking to like kids about this, and I think it would be fun for like after school or in the morning, whatever, like, you know, kids are interested in. So if you have any questions about that, I also, you know, discuss it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, did you have a particular location?
Yeah, I was thinking like the Mortimer side where the windows, I don't know all the construction information, so that's why I proposed
Well,
it.
you know, I think the best approach is to meet with either you or whoever from the student council or student body wants to meet with Mr. Morano, right?
Okay.
And talk to him about it. And you start at that level and see what he thinks about it or what he thinks about a location and so on. Then if he's in favor of it, then he could come. He'll come forward and he'll talk to me. Then we'll try to squeeze some money out of Mr. Kelly if we're all in favor of it. But yeah, I think that's where you should start.
Okay.
I think part of the thing of putting them on the street level would be dealing with it off hours. It would be a thing that
Right.
you bring in and out. But it's certainly something that could be explored. I think you have to start having that conversation with him.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'll let him know. But I won't. You go talk to him first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. But as far as your, I was going to mention FBLA. I'm glad you mentioned that. The academic decathlon team will be competing the end of this month, trying to defend their state championship, I guess, back to back, right? State championships. And starts with the regional. And again, it seems like every week or every month when you report, it does show the comprehensive nature, right? The across
Yeah.
the board talents and even beyond talents, just the efforts that our students put forward to be involved. So many different activities. We had I had the privilege of speaking at the community service for Martin Luther King or Dr. King Day, and at Mount Ararat Church, and we had about 7 or 8 of our musicians from the high school there performing. So again, I say this all the time. Not only is it's not only talent and skill and achievement, but it's the willingness to give of themselves. It's a day off for students, and they're there performing. So I appreciate that you bring all of this forward to all of us and to the public. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, and once you've discussed your proposal with Mr. Morano, it'll make its way at some point to Mr. Hurley and Mr. Kelly, and then could make its way to one of the committees, such as Buildings and Grounds, if it's something that everyone agrees is a viable addition. And because we tend to work in committee, so outside of the meetings, we meet as committees about once a month, and that's where it would go from there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
And also because I know Dr. Lai is going to say you can leave if you want to leave, and before you go, the other thing to consider is there's always different ways to make something work too. For example,
Yeah.
when I kind of said in joking about getting the money, but budget things are always a problem, right? But there's also, we're coming up to the REF grant time. There's other ways to get donations and grants. So, if there's an idea that everybody supports, we could figure out a way to make it work, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. All good.
So first I'll ask if there are any questions or comments from board members.
Good luck. PTA too is another one.
Yeah. Yeah. Friendly with the PTA president, so maybe.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for coming every
Yeah.
month, giving us a comprehensive report. I want to count on you singly to get the student body out tomorrow night for the game against Weehawken.
Oh.
No pressure. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
That never seems to be a problem.
There are a lot of people at basketball. Yes. It's tight, the gym. It's good though. A lot of energy.
Yeah. Good fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good job, Poppy.
All right. Well, Ms. Bimson, as usual, we always appreciate your reports. You
Yeah.
are a highlight of these meetings. And if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to, but we understand if you have commitments. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for your report.
Okay. Thank you. I'll come back.
All right. Thank you, you too. So we're going to move on now to the report of the superintendent. And as part of that, we'll hear a little bit about the fall 2022 Start Strong report of student achievement.
Thank you. It used to be that there was one report a year on student achievement. Now, with the variety of tests that have come out and the timing of the state in getting the results back, I think this is the third one I've done this year. The Start Strong was put into place coming out of the pandemic years when some schools were shut down, we were not, when the state testing did not take place. And the concept was to give an assessment at the beginning of the year so that you could gauge where students were, since you didn't have data from the previous year, and you wanted to see if there was any learning loss, et cetera, okay? We all thought, honestly, that it was not going to continue because, as you know, I reported back in, I guess, October, November, on the NJSLA, which is, and I give you that big booklet, right? It's a very thorough report. That test was given in May, April or late April or May to students, and the same students now are sitting for a test in September, which, you know, I always think if somebody in Trenton looks at these films, I'm going to get in trouble, but that's, you know, to me, is a redundancy. And we're starting strong by taking classroom time away from students in September to give them a miniature version of a test they took in May. Okay? But that said, we took it. They also say that this comes from the state. This is to be administered quickly with immediate results. We got a rough draft, like a preliminary results in middle of November, and we didn't get the full results until the last week of December, right before we broke for the holidays. So, you know, those results are not, we're starting strong, but we're finding out in the middle of the term. So, you know, again. It also cautions us all not to confuse this with the NJSLA, because the NJSLA is a much longer, more broad test that goes into every standard, but this is more of an overview, kind of a snapshot. And they also caution us and tell us not to compare this with any other test a student takes, compare this with state numbers, compare this with previous years or anything of that nature. And it's not designed to predict future achievement, nor is it designed to necessarily measure past achievement. So again, I'm reading this from the state. You know, you could interpret it for whatever you think. So how do we do? Well, we did very similar to what we did in the spring test, which is not a surprise. And as I said in the fall, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, and by the way, all this data is going to get up on the website. So if you want to see the full report, I didn't really think it was that essential to provide all this data. A lot of it are the interventions that we already have shared, you know, the same interventions that we looked at with NJSLA. So it'll all be up on the website. We tested over 1,300 students in language arts, almost 1,400 students in math. That's because it's grade level and subject, so there's more students, you know, taking geometry. It wasn't 10th grade math, it'd be geometry. So you could have been a 10th grader or an 11th grader, where with language arts, it was 10th grade language arts. And about 565 students in science, because it was grades 6, 9, and 12. It's looking at the students who took the test the year before. So whereas 5, 8 and 11 with this test is 6, 9, and 12. Okay. Our range of, there's 3 scoring areas. The lowest is more support needed. The next is some support needed. And the last category, the best category, is less support needed. In language arts, our range and the grade levels with the lower scores range from about 15% to 29% who needed more support. The range in the middle package, the some support, between 17 and 26%. And then between 50 to 61% needed less support. And again, those numbers, because it's a different measurement, are very consistent with what we did in the fall. Okay. In the fall, we said if you're 4 and 5, that means you're really at the top. Those numbers are pretty consistent. Okay. In math, equally consistent, not as high. Math usually is not. And we were 24 to as high as 63%, I'm going to come back to that in a minute, that needed more support in math. 24 to 43% that needed some, and from 11% to 44% who needed less. Now, the 63% and the 11% numbers, that's that Algebra 1 that I talked to you about back in the fall, okay? I'm going to speak a little bit more about that. Science, again, very comparable numbers, 23% to actually 54% needing the extra support in science, 20% to 51% needing some, and 13 to 34 needing less. Again, low numbers, consistent with the others. Just like with the state, you're not supposed, just like with the spring test, where you do compare it to the state, here you're not supposed to compare it to the state, but I did get the state numbers, which they say they don't have, but they have them. If you dig, you could find them. And we're better than the state. It's pretty much the same rhetoric I gave you back in the fall. It's a much shorter test, like 10, 12 questions. Takes about 45 minutes to an hour compared to several hours, and it's given at the beginning of the year. Okay? Look, so here's the thing with all this data. We're always doing better than the state, and that's great. Except, like I said back in the fall, I have some concerns about the greatest threat to any successful organization is complacency, or if you think you're good. Okay. We can't be pleased with numbers that aren't as good as we want them to be just because we're better than the state average. So what I really did was I disaggregated. I took a look at not the state, but I took a look at common districts to see where we range. And again, we're better in most cases, but in some cases not as much better as I'd like to be. And I'm not talking about this test. Okay, I'm talking about the spring assessments, right? And I think there comes a time, and I think we're at the time where it's important to have a deep dive into how we present our programs and how we take a deep dive and take a good look at our curriculum, take a good look at our pedagogy, take a good look at our methodology, take a good look at, take a good look, take a good hard look, a collegial, professional discussion about how we are doing fine, but we should want to do better. I mean, I think that's the goal of, you mentioned basketball. That's the goal of any coach, right? That's the goal of any CEO of a company. That's the goal of any movie director or play director or band director. If you're doing well, you just don't want to sit on your laurels, okay? You want to look to do better. So back in the fall, I started having conversations with the supervisors and the administrators. And I asked the supervisors to develop some action plans of how to address the immediate, right, which is the test scores. And understand that this is not the same test that we used to say, don't really pay attention. It's not the minimum basic skills test that started 30 years ago. It's not the HESPA or any of those. This test is a dive into each of the standards which are to be reflected in our curriculum. So if we're falling short in a certain area, we have to take a good hard look about why we're falling short. And it's not a question of blaming anybody or saying we're doing anything wrong. It's a question of how can we do it better. So I asked the supervisors to come up with an action plan, which they did. And that's kind of a quick look of how we could address certain things. And they've been meeting with faculty and staff and talking about some of the steps of that action plan. More familiarity with the test, taking a look. And, it's a rather 3 or 4 page series of steps. But I also want to go deeper than that. I just think it's healthy to reflect, and not deflect, right? When you reflect, every individual in the organization takes a look at themselves to say, how am I doing, and how can I do it better? Starting with me. I have to admit that I was very surprised at some of the things I saw when I really took a deep look at this state assessment. And, really took a look at the test. And when the principals did it, and when the supervisors did it, and when the teachers have done it, some people are saying, wow, we really didn't know what was there. And I don't see that as an indictment. I see it as people are busy doing their jobs. They don't think about, but we need to take these deep dives, have these conversations. So I asked, we're going to set up 4 committees. And one committee is going to be language arts and social studies. And that's going to be chaired by Mr. Ursulisi and Ms. Yoda, who are the supervisors of those 2 disciplines. One committee is going to be math, and that's going to be chaired by Ms. Schmedding, who is the supervisor, and Mr. DeBarry, the assistant principal of the high school, who was a math teacher for 20 plus years. Science is going to be chaired by Ms. Schmedding, who is also the supervisor of both math and science, and Ms. Saxon, the assistant principal at Pierpont, who was a science teacher for 12 or 15 years. And then assessments and grading, which will be chaired by Mr. Ryan, the assistant principal at Union, and Dr. Hopkins, the director of guidance. And we've asked the principals to give us some members of the faculty who we want to invite to be a part of this committees. And I'm going to record a message to go out to the faculty next week. And then we're going to send a letter to the people that we're inviting to be part of the committee, be totally voluntary. And it's not going to be, the committee's going to look at these action plans, but nothing is off the table. I want it to be a think tank, a collegial conversation, a self-assessment, a self-evaluation of what we're doing and how can we do it better. And when I say nothing's off the table, nothing's off the table. The committee could bring ideas forward to the principals and to me, and some of them might be rejected, some of them might be kicked aside, some of them might be, but nothing's off the table. Some are going to be accepted, some are going to move forward. And sometimes when you do these kind of reflections in these deep dives, what you find is, not much has to get changed. And that's a good thing. But we can't be afraid to work collegially and professionally of how to do better. And I'll just end it with this. Opening day this year, my message to the faculty and staff really centered around 2 items. One was understanding the why of what we do, why we do what we do, right? That's become kind of a buzzword now. You see it in our commercials, what's the why, right? And the other was talking about teamwork. Okay. Well, now I'm going to revisit those. The why is whether you're a pre-K teacher, a 4th grade teacher, or a 12th grade teacher, the why is when that graduate leaves Rutherford High School, we have done our part to provide him or her with the academic, artistic, civic, athletic, cultural opportunities to be the kind of graduate we want. So whether I'm a 2nd grade teacher or a 5th grade principal or an 11th grade teacher, I can't just say, I'm not worried about my test scores are good. We want to look at the whole picture, right, of what we can do to make that graduate fit the profile that we want our graduate to have. And the way we do that is teamwork, right? If you've ever read anything about change, change theory, like how do you create change, right? It comes from a more, a wider vision than just what is right in front of you, right? And I want people to have that vision. It's not just about my building, my classroom. It is, but how does that fit in to the big picture? So I want this to be actually, I'm hoping that it becomes a collegial exercise of working together to come up with taking a very good product and making it better. So that's how we're going to address things. And, more will unfold. I mean, there's more to it than this, but once, I delivered my State of the Union address, I guess I'll call it, next week, and then we get some nominees, and we have the committee sit and decide if they're going to be members and go from there. We'll see how it develops. But I don't see this as being this is not, let's check off a couple of boxes, right? And say by June we're done. No, we're not going to be done by June. This is something that's going to have an ongoing part of the fabric of how to make a strong organization strong. Okay? So that's my report on Start Strong. I kind of took a left turn there, right? But I've done that before. But anybody have any questions, comments before I finish? A couple of other quick things.
Yeah, well, just
Mr.
a comment about as far as doing that continuous improvement, right? I believe that's another buzzword we could use, but that's wonderful, and it's a bigger vision and a bigger program than what you have today, and to connect the dots maybe with student achievement and where students want to go. What's the college needs, what's the industry needs, that and match that to the curriculum or more.
Yeah. I think there's, I met with the assistant principals who are going to be part of this committee individually. I met with the supervisors individually. I met with them collectively to convey with them that I don't want them to think there's a prescription here. This could go as deep and as wide as they want it to go. And obviously, turnkeying these discussions back to the administrators, turnkeying these discussions back to the teachers, right? So that everybody's involved in it.
How about student input too?
Well, that could come out of the committee. Once again, look, I'm looking at this as a professional, collegial dive into the nuts and bolts of what we do. And I think you have to have the people that are in there. This has got to be not a top down. It's got to be a linear. Everybody's on the same page. But I think although it's important to hear what the kids think, it's very important to hear what they think. And there may be surveys involved. There may be discussions involved. But I want to make sure the people that are steering the ship are steering the ship. And that's not me. The best theory of education is the Big Bang Theory. You have a meeting, you talk about it, people bang their door shut, and they could do what they want to do in there. It's got to come from the people that are steering the ship. And those are the teachers and the building level administrators.
I'm just going to say I think it's great to look at the data and say, let's get these 4 committees together. Obviously, they're essentially related to the findings and to dig in and see what you find. I think opening it up to people is a real opportunity. And I think that's how, if everyone looks at it as an opportunity, you'll definitely be able to see sort of where you are, where the bright spots are to build from, and where the areas to grow. And two quick questions. Are each of these committees going to use specific data from the test results to say, okay, in this area in math, maybe measurement, or these areas maybe were a little lower, so want to look at that in relation to our programs they're going to
Right. That's already been done in the action plan, where there's specific areas of strictly related to the test, right? There's specific areas that are being mentioned and looked at. So that's already being done. But again, I want to make sure everybody understands that this new test that's been in place the last couple of years is based on the standards which our curriculum is based on. There's always been this kind of, don't teach for the test. Well, the test is testing the curriculum. So every year I sit here as part of the report of student achievement, and I say, wow, we got commended once again by the College Board for our AP scores, right? They're great. We're getting national comment. Well, we don't have a single AP teacher who doesn't go and get training from the AP test, that doesn't take the test and utilize the test. I taught AP. I went for the training. I got the test from previous years. I modeled my assessments based on that. I became a reader for the AP exam because I wanted to understand better how they were being graded. So, I don't know. We take a driver's test, we practice driving, right? This is what the curriculum is. I don't really care if the test scores go up or down if we're looking at, hey, we struggle with informational text every year. How are we attacking that? Right? it goes back to my coaching days. We might lose against Weehawken, we might win, but we're going to figure out the best way to prepare for them, right? So that's what I want to do.
I think
We're going to
Mazzone-
win. Don't worry
I
about it.
think
Don't
Mr.
get
Mazzone
nervous.
wants you to go to the Weehawken.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to win. Okay.
My other question, just real brief, the fourth committee you said was assessments and grading. So is that looking at like types of assessments, frequency?
It's looking at,
things like
look, you all saw 280 students out of about 540, because one grade doesn't get Board of Ed awards, right? And that's great. And that's across the nation. We've been dealing with grading. It used to be C was the average grade. Not that long ago. 15 years ago, 16 years ago, C was the average grade. It was a bell curve. Right now, if you get a C, we're considering you for possible child study team intervention. So when there's a disconnect, right, from saying, hey, you got a straight A in everything, but you got a 2 on the state assessment. So yeah, we're going to take a good look at grading. We are never going to change the grade inflation that is across the country. Was NYU or something where the professor got let go because their grading was somewhere? It was in the paper, some prestigious college, because they gave kids too many C's. Okay, we're not going to change that, but we can also take a hard look at how to let students know where they're missing the mark and where they have to improve. Right. So how we look at our grading, our assessment, how we're going to take, for example, writing. If I know I'm going off on a tangent.
No, I
but
know what you're saying.
what I'm just saying is mathematically, right? If a kid's got F's at the beginning and A's at the end, the average is a C. But at the end, when he moves on, he's an A writer. So let's have an honest conversation about how we do assessments. He's not a C writer because he used to be an F writer, but now we pulled him up to be an A. See what I'm saying? I want some of the this is a philosophical discussion, but it's good for people to think about their profession. Right? I'm getting philosophical in my old age.
All right, and that's part one of your
Part one.
superintendent report.
Yes. Part two.
Ready for part two.
Not as Detective Al Anderson is going to be retiring on January 31st. I just have to say that, I've known Al since he was a student in the high school. In 2002, when I was the principal, I put in for the grant that would provide us with a school resource officer, met with the chief at the time, and I really wanted Al involved, and he has been such a valuable resource to the community and to the school district for these last 21 years. So we're going to miss him, and we're happy, though, to have Detective Inglace, who is the new school resource officer. He has been working in tangent with Detective Anderson over the last month or two to kind of move into the role. And we're very happy to have Detective Inglace join us. So again, I know there'll probably be something maybe a little more formal at some point, but I want to thank Detective Anderson for all he's done for our students. Yes.
So there is a walkout. It says,
Yes.
From Chief Russo, sent it out today. Please join on Tuesday, January 31st at 3:30 p.m. It will be Detective Alfred Anderson's final walkout from police headquarters.
Right. Yeah, and I shared that with all the administrators and certainly the board. I'll send you all, if you didn't get it, I'll send it to you as well. But I'm sure it's going to be, I also know some of the police officers in other communities are planning on being there. And, Al is, and not only is he an outstanding person and police officer, but he's such a gregarious, outgoing guy that it's, I think there'll be a big. It might look like Times Square on New Year's Eve. The number of people out there. Yeah, you might need big screens up somewhere. I already mentioned the students of the band. I was going to thank them, the FBLA students. A couple of quick things. We're still waiting, right, Mr. Kelly, on the 2 doors for the nurse's office and the one lab. You need vision panels. Those doors have been delayed in coming in, but the other 2 labs are open and running at Union School. We're happy about that. The main office is ready. I think they're moving back into the main office. That floor repair is done. They finally got the mason in to get the columns even in the gym, the brick, and they're getting stained this week, so it'll all be consistent, and that will be done. So believe it or not, we're getting close to the finish line. Not the finish line with punch lists and all that, but the finish line of the major stuff at Union School. So we're happy with that. And I think that's it. Oh, the Board of Ed picture, which we do sometimes in February for the yearbook, is going to be March. There was a conflict with so I'll remind you all, but the March meeting will be the annual yearbook picture. Okay? And thank you for listening to my rambling, but it'll make more sense once we actually put things together. Okay? At least I hope so.
Thank you, Mr. Early. Yeah, looking forward to it. Questions or comments from board members? All right, hearing none, then we're going to move on now to the report of the president. So first, I just want to echo what you're saying about Al Anderson. He's a friend to a lot of us in town. He's an amazing, consummate professional. He's had a huge impact. My own kids have interacted with him in good ways, mostly. He will truly be missed. Big shoes to fill. Everyone brings their own shoes, but congratulations to him for all his great service. So I know on January 3rd, we all met together because we had a reorganization. And so everyone's got their committee assignments and liaison assignments. And I want to thank everyone for their amazing service. Everyone is continuing with their liaison assignments, chairing roles. Those who've made space for others to take on leadership, really appreciate collectively how we all come together to support each other to make sure we're all growing and developing and evolving as a board. So just like us, in the beginning of January, the council also has a reorganization meeting. And this year, the new council liaison to the Board of Education is Ms. Robertson, and wanted to acknowledge Ms. Robertson this evening and thank you for coming. So I had a chance to go on to the NJSBA website, and I got an email recently, and there were a couple things on there that I thought were interesting I wanted to share. First, the next virtual BCSBA meeting that is being hosted by NJSBA is on January 30th. It's virtual. It's the last of a three-part series on finance, school safety, and mental health. So those are three areas that I think we identified in our board self-evaluation as areas of importance to us. So if anyone's able to make it or wants to register, you can go on to the NJSBA website. That's January 30th. Also, there are emails sent out from something called School Board Notes. It's from NJSBA, and there are articles of things that are shared there. And I was reading through it, and they're creating a new board president's corner where they have a topic of the month, and they're going to be discussing it in more detail. So if those are interesting, I'd love to bring those to you and share what's happening there. They focus on a few articles, the importance of nonpartisan boards of education, which I think we also signaled as something that's obviously really important. There's a webinar that's coming up about the role of families in human trafficking, prevention and intervention. And so there's a lot of good stuff on NJSBA. Just wanted to share that with you. I was looking at events that are coming up. Obviously, there's always sporting events for the Rutherford schools that we can attend. But I'd say April, May, and June is where there's really going to be a lot of events, concerts, art shows, musicals, all kinds of stuff of that nature. So make sure to look up those dates. And as you can, the more we can be present in the community, actively involved, I think it's really important. I'm going to once again mention Thursday, June 22nd. What is Thursday, June 22nd? Anyone?
Graduation.
Yes, it's RHS graduation. So hoping to have all 9 of us there together would be fantastic. I think it's really important. It's a signature event for the district. Finally, just wanted to make a couple comments about the board self-evaluation that we did. A couple takeaways I had, and then I'll open it up to everyone. This is an opportunity, an open session where if anyone wants to make any comments, give any feedback about the board self-evaluation. I think overall what stood out to me this year is the board continues to see the strength in how we function. A highly engaged group, very diverse expertise in different areas that contribute to, I think, the board as a whole being really strong in different areas. There's really a great alignment between the findings in here and some of the goals that we set out for in terms of our board self-evaluation goals. So we talked about one of our goals being community outreach, communications plan, involvement in events and activities. Those were things that came up as areas that we're going to continue to work on. And then, community engagement continues to be an area that we're going to continue to focus on. I thought it was interesting that our new highest score as a board of a whole was around ethical behavior and working effectively with the superintendent. So I think that's great, and that we should continue to strive for that. How we work as a team. I also noted that goal setting was something that went up in terms of our score this year, and I want to really thank Mr. Conti as chair of strategic planning, because before we set our goals this year as a board, he went out of his way as chair of strategic planning to reach out to each of us and to say, what do you see as goals that are important for us? So I think I would partially say that's some of the reason why maybe that went up a little bit. We could all continue to benefit from engaging with our understanding of policy. But those were just some different takeaways. I think, we continue to see community engagement, professional development as things that are important. And interestingly, a major challenge and something that all districts are thinking about is continued fallout from COVID, monitoring student academic achievement and learning loss. So I think, Mr. Hurley's plans are right on par with things like that. So I was pleased. They were overall really strong scores, but they definitely signal areas that we can continue to focus on. I would love to open it up to anyone here who wants to make any comments, suggestions, give feedback about the board self-eval.
It's an overall
Dr.
comment
Singh?
that it happens every year, but I'm pleased that all of our comments aren't focusing on things that we're doing wrong to fix, but things we want to do better. So focusing on improvements, not complaints, which is good. So, right. So I think we're identifying our weaknesses and trying to improve them. So I think it's very useful for us.
Did everyone find the format of this to be helpful? I added a few things this year. I added the category, besides the highest and lowest score, I put other scores in there as well, so you can sort of see, okay, well, maybe goal setting, effective preparation of meetings, staff appreciation, and finances didn't get the highest rating, but they tied for the second highest rating. And it was still 3.78 out of 4, so I think gives perspective to, I think all the areas. Mr. Ely?
I was just going to make a suggestion as far as, for example, policy was rated good, yet it seemed like, asking the question, am I familiar with the board's policies, using them as a basis for decision making, I would ask, would it be appropriate, and I'd be willing to work with somebody on this, to put a couple slides together, talking points to understand the structure of the policies and regulations and how they get there, just as information. And maybe we could talk offline, but down the road, maybe not 2 meetings, but maybe the 3rd meeting from here. So
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think in reading those comments, I think there's also a little bit of a lack of familiarity. Strauss-Esme replaced New Jersey school boards, and the exact same process took place in New Jersey school boards. We would get policy revisions from them, and we would then send it out. We go from there. The difference with Strauss-Esme and school boards is Strauss-Esme sends you at least quarterly or more often revisions, and school boards, you had to go searching for them. Okay, you had to remind yourself every month or 2 to go look to see if there was any revisions. Where I get both electronically and in the mail, the packet comes, and they also give you a much more user, especially for the secretarial staff, Word documents that have cross, that you could, but the process is the same. I think one of the things that people have to realize is if you stop up my office, you'll see there's 2 volumes of policy about this wide, right? So to think you're going to be familiar with policy, you're not going to be familiar with policy. What you have to be familiar with is where to go when you need to find it.
Yes, that was my point too, Mr. Hurley. Exactly that. Is
Because
to give
I-
everybody some information.
Right.
If you have a thought about a certain policy or what do we do about, is to how to find it.
Right.
And that's where, if I worked with somebody, I could probably put
Right.
down.
Right, so if you
talking
want, we
points.
could meet and
Okay.
we can go over something. But, they're on the website, and, if there's a policy, you could find it. But
based on the
but I think the
categorization.
whole idea about it, if there's a concern, we could do a little brief presentation for the board and for the community.
Brief, it doesn't, but it
Yeah.
might inform everyone how to get at something.
I think that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
Spoken like the chair of policy.
Too much.
No, thank you.
Only about 800.
So yeah, the only other, I did have one suggestion that I wanted to float by everyone, see what your thoughts are. So the board self-evaluation, we do it in November, December, and we go over it now, but going over it at the end of the year is really an opportunity before, if there is a changeover in Board of Education members. So by doing it in November, December, we're getting the feedback of the people who are ending their term. But our goal setting is interesting to me because we goal set at the beginning of the school year, thinking about the school year. And in sort of thinking about it and seeing this, one suggestion or idea for everyone to think about is, would we want to, at the completion of the board self-eval in January, once we've gone over it, even if it's December, January, would we want to do our goal setting after we've had a chance to review the board self-evaluation, and to use the board self-evaluation as a catalyst for conversations that we can have and go to strategic planning and then come back together. We could do it different ways, but we have the flexibility if we want to be able to do, we govern ourselves when it comes to board goals and when we do them. So just a thought.
I would even be in favor of doing the board eval late, like, with the school year to get that more in sync with when we do our current goals. Because I know it's for when people are leaving, but we can always do exit interviews or have an exit strategy, or just open us up to former members, last year. So,
Yeah, I mean, we're not beholden to a time frame for the board self-eval. I did check with Mr. Hurley about, even with Cusack, like, we're not required to hand it in on a certain date. We do it at the end of the term, really because we want everyone who's been on the board over the course of the year to give feedback about how we function as a board. But again, looking at the time of year, we have that flexibility. Ms. Jones?
When we went through New Jersey school boards to do our board member eval, it was, their deadline is November 30th. You can't submit it after that. So we were doing it in October. 'Cause I remember it had to be done before we went down to school board convention, so that's why so I don't know if that would be helpful, but you might want to consider that. The board's still the same. We've gotten through most of the year, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different ways to do it. I guess the thing I'm thinking about is just tying in board goals to the board self-eval. We can think about a time of year that we want to do it. So we've got Mr. Sprayberry and then Mr. Mazzone.
I mean, we do it all the time in corporate, you do mid-year reviews, so when you do the eval, just put our goals that are there, and, 1 to 5, where do you think we've accomplished, and are there any additional comments, do you think we should change anything? Change or add, or, that's all, just put them in on the form.
Mhm.
And say, have we achieved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rating, same as you did the other. And then you have your follow-up.
I would echo James's comment about looking at it like a performance evaluation, if you will. But I do like doing the evaluation and then setting the next term's goals. At least using that to help guide us. I mean, especially if there were similar themes that came through in there, as you pointed out. So I think why not the previous year's goals and evaluate based around those. There's nothing to say we can't have other metrics in there like you put in. I think those are smart. And then to use this as a driver for shaping for the next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think putting board goals in to be able to evaluate and say, how do we think we did on those is a smart thing. And again, this board self-eval is really based on the technical one provided by NJSBA, and we took that and we pretty much converted it to something that was easier for us to fill out with a little bit more of a flexible timeline. But we do have the flexibility to think about these things, and we're already set at this point with, these two sets of things. But when we get to the next iteration, it's something that we can think about.
Well, if I could just comment, based on echoing some of the comments that were just made, it's an interesting structure because the school year begins, right? So we think in terms of a school year. So there's goals you want to have in place in September or shortly thereafter that the board's going to see through for the school year. However, the board's lifespan, right, is January to December. So, I think I don't see any problem at all in coming up with 2 goals, 3 goals, whatever number of goals in, like you were saying, for September. And then, in January, let's add a goal. I'm going to be meeting with, the teachers do SGOs, which are kind of like growth objective goals for their students. That can be amended, right, throughout, right? That could be amended when you meet with your administrator. The administrators have goals when they meet with me. If there's a need to come up with another one or amend it, they can. So the goal can be a living, breathing thing that can change. I also think the thing that really jumped out, Dr. Alati and I had this conversation briefly before, the thing that really jumped out in the evaluation about what we could do better and what we could do better in was, the community communication, right? Community involvement. Yet that was a goal that the board recognized prior even to the evaluation. So I think that's a credit that, so I think you kind of do both. It could be like a hybrid. I don't think there's ever a time when I would hope, speaking of myself, I would hope I'm not going to let something slide for a year if I think it has to become a goal because I didn't put it on the goals back in September. So I think it's a point well taken. If something bubbles up here, we should address it, right? And so going forward, we could be a little more flexible.
Yeah, and I think if people have further comments about it, just, you could email me, reach out to me. I know that Mr. Conti also talked to me about this a little bit as well, so maybe we could bring this back to strategic planning in terms of a structure and then bring it back to the board at a subsequent meeting and talk a little more about it and see what people think. All right, that's it for my board report. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, then at 8:23 p.m., we're going to open up the meeting to the public for any comments related to the agenda. All right, hearing none, we are going to close the meeting at 8:24 p.m. And now we're going to move on to new business where there is action to be taken. We are going to begin with personnel. Ms. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we have 13 motions to go over because we just had one added. I hope you got them all tonight. So, number 1, we have Margaret McFadden Dowdy, retirement. Number 2, Mandy Hart. That's a resignation for special ed teacher. 3, Joshua Dalawa. I'm sorry about that, however you pronounce his last name. To approve as a long-term substitute English teacher at the Rutherford High School. For Ariella Thomas as a lunch monitor at middle school to approve. Also to approve number 5, employee 1691 for maternity leave absence under the New Jersey Family Leave Act. 6, same thing for employee 1320, disability leave, also the Family Leave Without Pay Act. 7, 6 class less than a semester. To approve a prorated stipend for $57.92 for the following high school teachers who have been assigned a 6th class for 16 consecutive days, more than 2 consecutive weeks, but less than a semester during 2022 and 2023 school year. Rutherford High School, that's the 6th class, and that would be Holly Basillo, Jessica, my glasses are troubled tonight, forgive me. Jessica Fralaudo, Ken Lacey, John O'Hanlon, and Andrew Vanderbilt. 8, sixth class, to approve a $250 stipend for half a year course for following high school teacher who have been assigned to sixth class for 2022-23 school year. That's Rutherford High School and Stephanie Curtis, Deborah Dalia, Stephen Dunn, and Michael Mayerzak. 9, internships observations following for the district internship. Should I read those all?
I think you could just say as listed.
All right, internship, and the following internship again, observations and observations. 10, substitute teachers, to following substitute teacher for the 22-23 school at the per diem rate of $100, Ryan Satalana, Joshua Dewala, Carolyn Hara Kelvick, and Brian Apgar. 11, substitute teacher assistants also, Caroline Herrera Kelvick and Brian Apgar. 12, travel reimbursements, and that's as listed there, all for, especially first one we have to read for Dennis Healy, Lindsay Raymond, Jacqueline Kozak, Brian. There's a whole list of them as listed. And then 13, and our added one tonight, approve the following travel reimbursements for a seasoned Lions teacher, building the skill and confidence level activity for math students. And 14, oh, I didn't realize it was 14, I'm sorry. Employees 1262, a leave of absence under New Jersey Family Leave Act without pay, February 23rd through 23rd for employee 1262. So I asked for the board to move 1 through 14.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions from board members?
I just want to, thank and congratulate Ms. McFadden Doty on her, retirement at the end of this year. Again, as I say, as we keep approving these, we'll have more to say at the end of the year. But she's always been a real bright spot in our program. So we wish her well.
All right, so Mrs. Ahmed moved those. Do we have a second? Mr. Bogosian, any last comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes on all, abstain on 9.
9,
Yes.
abstain on 9. Mr. Healy,
Yes on all except for Resolution 12, Item 1. I abstain from that one.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Owadi,
Yes.
motion's carried.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to curriculum and instruction. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. We did not have a meeting under CNI. There are 5 resolutions for tonight for approval. 1, out-of-district placements. 2, field trips, and there's 81 now listed. 3 is an HIB decision. 4 is a home instruction just for 1 student. And 5 is the overnight trip for Atlantic City and high school leadership. FBLA High School Leadership Conference.
All right, thank you. Just a note, if you were not at the last board meeting, you may want to consider abstaining to number 3 on the HIB decision since you are not an executive decision to hear them. Questions or comments from board members?
I
Hearing
move
none.
Resolutions 1 through 5.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Healy, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes on all, abstain on 3.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes, but abstain on number 3.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Owadi,
Yes.
motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to finance. Mr. Bogosian.
Yes, we didn't have a finance committee meeting since the last board meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is on next Monday. Motion 1 is routine approval of bills. 2 is the December treasurer's report. 3 is the December budget transfers. 4 is amending the 2023 ESEA submission. 5 is accepting a donation of shooting shirts for the girls basketball team from the Sean Moran Summer Slam. 6 is to start univent replacements at the K Center, Lincoln, and Washington schools. 7 is also univent replacements at Union School, but via a different grant funding. 8 is the lease purchase program for Chromebooks, and I believe that's an annual, at, like around this time.
Actually, it's usually a lot earlier. We were pursuing a grant.
Oh, okay.
Which we did not get, so now we revert to the lease.
And motion 9 is to authorize a grant application for dehumidification and heat recovery units at the pool.
All right, thank you. Yep. Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, I left you a piece of paper in front of your seats, so we're changing the wording on number 9. As I went through the grant application, they asked for a different motion than they accepted last time. So I gave you this, just asked you to substitute the wording as indicated here, but it doesn't change the substance of what we're trying to do.
All right, questions or comments? Dr. Racine?
Yeah. What's a shooting shirt?
A practice shirt.
Oh, okay. I have no idea.
It doesn't involve, yeah, it's shooting
sport
basketball.
So I just,
Practice jersey.
something you shoot at, something you shoot with.
No.
If I may, the number 6 was the univent replacement. We have dedicated about $1.2 million out of the ESSER 3 grant for univent replacements, so that's what this is doing. That's a total of, I think, 18 univents in Lincoln and Washington in the kindergarten center. Subsequent to this, the ROD grant, number 7, was announced. We thought it'd be best just to piggyback on that and do a few more, so we'll do 5 at Union School. There were a total throughout the district of about 70 that need to get replaced. So this is a long-term cycle that we're talking about here. This will give us a good start to get moving on this.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from board members? Hearing none. Mr. Bogosian, you want to move those?
I'd like to move motions 1 through 9.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Mazzone, any last questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes,
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on now to policy. Mr. Healy.
Yes, we did not have a policy committee meeting since our last board meeting, and there are no resolutions for this evening.
Okay. Thank you. Then we'll move on to buildings and grounds. Mr. Sprayberry.
Good evening. We have a few motions here. Three total. One is for the architects to oversee and design and the installation of the new univents. We got cubbies at Lincoln Elementary School, and we have 3 change orders, one at Union Middle School, and one at Rutherford High School Mortimer Wing for the boiler room renovations, and at Pierpont Elementary for additional fire alarm ductwork and carpentry work under the referendum. So, might put those forth for approval, please, sir.
All right. Questions or comments from board members? Nope. All right. Hearing none. Mr. Sprayberry moved those. We have a second. Mr. Bogosian, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
yes,
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on now to old business. Does anyone have any old business? Ms. Jones?
it was my honor and Mr. Hurley's honor too, I believe, that we were able to be judges at Pierpont's 4th and 5th spelling bee. This is sponsored by the Junior Women's Club. There's other ones that come up too, but I got scared when the first 4 contestants went down on the first word, the first round. It's like unheard of if that's ever happened. I've been doing this for 10 years maybe, but they were very good. And the kids have spelling bees in their class, so this is the best of the whole group. But they did a great job, and we've never had one where it came down to 2 for second and third place. A young boy, I'm not gonna pronounce his name right, Arush Shah was our first place winner. And the 2 of them, the 2 girls that were fighting for second and third place, they must have gone through 20 words.
No, I counted 39.
39?
Right.
Oh my God.
It was right after you said to me, this is going to be over early this year.
Yeah.
And then they went 39 words back and forth before you.
39 words. Okay, so, but it was wonderful. They did a great job. And the other thing is, I did do the Washington PTA meeting last week. It was Tuesday. I gave the update on where we are with our facilities and heard about how well that they're doing raising money. I'm always impressed with PTA's raise now compared to when in my day, when it was our budget was maybe $800 a year. I mean, it's thousands now, but they were good meetings.
Great, thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Healy?
Yes, on January 12th, I attended the Kinder PTA meeting, and the board officers presented their reports, and they reviewed upcoming student events, which there are about 13 already in the next few months, including, for example, an author's visit, Read Across America, Valentine's activities, and book fair, just to name a few. And they were very appreciative of the help they get from Mrs. Coy and her staff, the PTA. One other thing, I attended the Martin Luther King celebration, the program celebration at Mount Ararat Baptist Church on the 16th, which was Martin Luther King Day. And it was an inspirational program with the high school band members performing, and the Boy Scouts participated from Rutherford. And we also had a few people delivering what I thought was inspirational and thoughtful comments, including Mr. Hurley and Rutherford council members. So it was a wonderful program, and it was a beautiful tribute. It's very nice. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other old business?
I just want to remind, I know Mr. Bogosian mentioned Finance Committee next Monday at 7:30, Building and Grounds next Monday at 7 o'clock, correct, Mr. Kelly? Right. And we'll be looking at, Mr. Healy will be talking about policy, and then we'll be getting some policy out. Maybe need a meeting, maybe don't need a meeting, we'll go with that. And a lot of curriculum is going to be coming out this spring. There's another round of standards, so probably shooting for like March and April, it'll be maybe 2. So I'll keep you posted on that, but upcoming those 2 committees. Okay.
All right, thank you. Ms. Ahmed?
All these different committees, like personnel, do we know when that's going to be?
Personnel, we usually do a meeting sometime in March in anticipation of openings and things of that nature, and then again in May.
And what about curriculum and instruction?
I just said we'll probably be doing that. I don't know. I have to wait for the curriculum to come to me. So we'll need at least 2 meetings sometime in March, April, or May. Always a week or 2 ahead or more.
Policy also, it's not coming up right away?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. And if we represent the different schools, we should call them?
Well, I sent an email to the PT Council President and to the building principals, and I listed all of the PTA representatives because there were some changes this year, and I asked them to make sure their presidents knew, and so they could reach out to you. Okay, but if you haven't heard anything yet, you might want to give a call to them.
They don't have our number.
Yeah, well, they have your email, and they have a way to reach, but reach out to the school, to the building principal, and find out.
Any other old business? Hearing none, we're going to move on to legislative update. Ms. Jones, anything
Just
for us?
one, This is a Senate Bill number 3440, sponsored by Vin Gopal. He's from Monmouth District 11, and it was introduced January 10th, 2023. It expands the scope of allowable uses of school district employees' sick leave. I don't know where that's gonna go. It just started. I try to, follow it, but all this, it appears that they're gonna limit the way that they have to notify the board, so then when their sick days are coming.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything about that, so I'll have to,
It just was in, January 10th. So.
okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jones. So at 8:41 p.m., we're going to open up the meeting to the public for any items related or not related to the agenda. Any comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we're going to close the meeting at 8:41 p.m. We do have a need for an executive session
One student issue,
for one student issue.
5 minutes.
So we should be out for about 5 minutes, no action to be taken. And we need a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Sprayberry, seconded by Dr. Racine. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.